Hello, everybody. Today I'm here to talk about joint ownership on your assets with Andrew Felker. Andrew is a partner at Walker Head Lawyers. They're Durham's largest full-service law firm. Andrew's been there for 30 years, over 30 years now, and he specializes in estates, trusts, and wills. Now, Andrew, just to start us off, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that intro, but why do people want to do joint assets? Like, why do people want to, do you use joint accounts, joint assets on homes, things like that?
Well, there's a few reasons that people do joint accounts or put things into joint accounts. When I talk to you today, I'm really talking more from the perspective of my older clients who are putting things into joint names, typically with kids. And one of the main reasons is they want to avoid that horrible probate tax that they always hear about. And what probate is a process where you prove the last will. And in doing so, you have to pay a tax. The tax is actually 1.5% on the value of the assets in an estate. But you don't need to pay probate tax on things that are either held jointly or that they have a beneficiary designation. So if your home is held jointly with somebody by survivorship, which is a typical way of joint ownership, it goes automatically to the survivor and you don't pay the probate tax. So on $1 million home, you're saving $15,000. You avoid probate tax too by beneficiary designation. So on RSPs, RIFs, TFSAs, you don't pay probate tax. It's easy to do those beneficiary designations, but people are then worried about their most major asset, which is their home. And that's why they typically will say, I'm going to add my kid. I'm going to avoid that terrible tax.
Now that sounds great, actually. I get to pass something on to my kid. I don't have to pay probate tax. Now I know you and I are both not necessarily huge fans of this strategy. Do you want to talk about maybe some of the pitfalls or why somebody might want to avoid that? Or
well, sure. Everyone's a fan of avoiding paying $15,000 in tax. I'm all for that. But now I've got $985,000 left in an estate, and that's what's at risk. Because as soon as you put somebody else on title, whether it be to your home, whether it be to your bank account, you have lost control over your most major asset. You have somebody else owning it with you. And that means lots of things can go wrong. For an older client, give me an example, an older client is in a home, maybe not in today's market where things are going crazy, and then that person says, I want to sell my home. Well, their son or daughter is on it, and because they are the co-owners, they have to agree to the sale. Son or daughter may say, no, mom or dad, I don't think it's a good time to sell. I think you should stick it out for another year. That market's only going to get better. We can make a couple $100,000 more on the sale if you stay in the house. Parent says, no, I want to go. I've looked at some retirement homes. I'm ready to downsize. I'm ready to move on. And the child says, no, I don't think so. I don't want to sell. It's not the right time. Then the parent comes back to me and says, Andrew, I want my home back. I need you to get my home back. Get my child off title. And my answer is, well, you put them on. Now they co-own it. I can't just take them off. They have to agree to come off. And guess what? They're not going to agree to come off. So you don't have control. You don't have control over the sale process. You don't have control over any part of that. You don't control your most major asset. To me, that's a big thing. You have lost independence. And let me be honest with you, John, it's not often the child that's the problem. It's who the child is living with or married to that's the problem. It's the daughter-in-law, it's the son-in-law who's cranking up the dissension behind the scenes. So you're dealing with all sorts of other people, other issues here. So I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen this go sour. An older person thinks they're doing the right things, thinks they're saving $15,000, but in fact, they don't have control over what they've worked long and hard for. 25 or 30 years, they paid off that mortgage, and now they've lost control, all to save a little bit of money. So that's one of the most major reasons that I don't like seeing joint ownership. The other reason, if I can give you an example, is that it doesn't always follow what your will is going to say. So let's pick a fictional example. Let's have Don, and Don's got 2 kids. He's got that wonderful son Andrew, and he's got another son named Matthew, and they each have a couple of kids. And his will says, I give everything to Andrew and Matthew equally. But if Andrew or Matthew, either one of them has died before me, their share goes down the bloodline to their kids, to my grandkids. So if I died, if I was Andrew, it would go down to my kids. If Matthew dies, it goes down to his kids. So that's the will. The dad then thinks, I don't want to pay that darn probate tax. So he puts Andrew and Matthew on joint tenants on the home with him. The thinking is that dad, because he's older, is going to die first. And then the property is going to be in Andrew and Matthew's name. That's great. That's exactly what the will says. I've accomplished that and I've saved that tax. And you've saved some time. You're not going through that probate process. You're not waiting for the court to approve things. So dad's thinking this is a win situation for us, for everybody. But unfortunately, before dad passes away, Andrew has an accident. He's in a car accident and he's killed. It's bad news. Dad dies of a broken heart a couple of years later. But when dad dies, the home goes to Matthew because the home was in triple joint, Andrew, Matthew, and dad, Don. Well, Andrew isn't alive. Don has now died. Now that house is 100% in Matthew's name. It's not going by the will because Matthew got it automatically. If we had kept it to be the way the will says, Andrew's kids were going to get 50% of the house. Now that house is solely in Matthew's name, and unless he does the right thing and says, oh, Andrew's kids, I'm going to take care of you, it's going to all go to Matthew. Yes, you could bring a court application. Yes, you could say it's being held in trust. But remember, Andrew's kids have lost their dad. They're probably younger, and now they're fighting Uncle Matthew. And that's a horrible situation to be in. If they brought a court application, you're going to be 3 times the amount of money that was saved just to get it to be the right thing. So by doing this, you can sometimes defeat what the will is. You can defeat that process. So that's one of the other reasons that joint accounts, joint ownership on a home is a bad idea. Let me take that example and give it to you on a bank account, because oftentimes my clients go over to the bank and they say, bank, we have a power of attorney document. It's going to let me have access to mom or dad's bank account. Can I have it? Can I put this on that? And the bank says, even better, let's make those accounts joint. It's the same thing, but you'll save probate tax. It'll be better when mom and dad have died. So you get a situation where there's a child here. Typically, there's a kid here and a kid who lives far away. So the kid here wants to go and start helping mom and dad with their banking. Mom and dad are getting older. They don't like getting out in this COVID era. They're extra scared. So they put the son on title or on the bank account to help. It's for convenience sake. The idea is to help them with their banking. And then when they pass away, the child who's here, he's supposed to split it with his sibling who lives far away. And that works fine at the beginning. But the problem is, as time goes on, the son who's here, he does more and more for mom and dad. And then by the time of mom and dad's death, he thinks to himself, I deserve that money. I earned that money. I went over to that house every Sunday night and I fixed the remote control on the TV. And I found things on the internet that they were lost. Mom and dad wanted me to keep that money by joint ownership, because the bank document says on death, it goes to the surviving child, or to the surviving joint owner. So mom and dad die, child who's here, he says, all that money's mine. Sibling, sorry to tell you, mom and dad died. They didn't have anything. It was all gone by the time they went. The truth is, it all went to the one who's here by survivorship. And again, where mom and dad would have had a will that's equal, unless those assets went into the will in their name alone, there's nothing in the will to distribute. So again, you've defeated the estate plan. The child here who was supposed to only do this for convenience sake has now convinced himself that he's entitled to it all, and a very unfair, inequitable result is what happens. So another reason where it just defeats the whole plan. You get inequality. Yes, you've saved 1.5%, but at what cost? Certainly not family harmony or equality.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think in that last example with the joint bank accounts, there were several examples over the past few years where that was challenged and things were deemed to be held in trust.
Sure. The Supreme Court of Canada was asked to rule on these, and in I think in 2007, 2008, it came out with some rules for us, or some guidance for us. And the Supreme Court says that if there is a transfer or a joint account between a parent and a child, the child is presumed to hold it in trust for the estate. So yes, in my example, that would help the sibling far away to say, no, the Supreme Court says that's mine. But usually to get to that stage, you got to bring a court application. So while the court might give us guidance that that's what should happen, if the child who's here says, I ain't paying up, he's making his sibling far away bring a court application. So you've accomplished resulted in two things. You've got all the legal costs to do that, to defend it, and you've got a family harmony which is now completely destroyed. Go back to the legal costs. I guarantee you the legal costs of the sibling out west, the child here, are more than 1.5% savings. So while that child may win, they might be able to prove it, and more likely they would prove it. It's going to take a while, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to rip this family apart. Whereas if you paid the 1.5% tax, you're knowing where 98.5% is going to go. So to me, you're doing what you want, and paying a very minimal amount of money to guarantee your plan is going to be put in place, and your family is going to stay together a whole lot more than otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. And so we know that joint ownership now isn't the best option. What do you recommend people do?
Well, before death, a power of attorney is a really good thing. So the difference between joint ownership and a power of attorney is a power of attorney allows somebody to step in and do your affairs for you while you're alive, manage things. So that's how you manage a bank account. Sure, as a society ages, as mom and dad get older, they may not want to go to the bank. So the law says that a power of attorney, where you appoint somebody to be there acting for you, they can do anything you can do except make a will. So they can go on, they can do your banking for you, they can do their investing for you, they can sell your home for you if need be. And that has some real positive things. What a power of attorney can't do is do anything after death. So when you die, the power of attorney document dies with you. And really, the reality is you're going to pay the probate tax on the 1.5%. There really is, aside from this bad planning, I think, putting joint names on, there really is no way of avoiding paying the probate tax. There is really no creative way to avoid that, to do it. But it's, again, in my thinking, the 1.5% that you spend isn't really very much in the broad scheme of things. I speak at lots of seniors events. They always seem to think it's 40% tax. It isn't. It's 1.5. It's not going up. And it's a necessary evil, quite frankly. I mean, I'd rather they took the 1.5% and put it into the court system. It seems to pay for other things that Mr. Ford wants. It doesn't go to improving, buying us or getting us more judges. But such is life. That's just my little side rant.
Yeah, that's great. Well, 1.5 is certainly better than 40%. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Sure.
So.
And do you have any other kind of quick tips for people as well when they're setting up joint ownership, maybe around beneficiaries, maybe record keeping? I can see that as being something potential.
Well, if you want to give a child a joint asset, and there's more than one child, so sometimes a parent will want a specific child to get a joint account. And again, as I said, the presumption from the Supreme Court is parent to child is presumed to be in trust for the estate. It's up to the child to be able to prove differently after death. So if that's what you want, and sometimes there are good reasons for it, document it. Write a letter that says, I've put John on my account jointly with me. It's my intention that John has this. It's not to be held in trust for the estate. Then when parent dies, John can hand up the piece of paper and say, look, Dad wanted me to have this by joint ownership. End of discussion, end of thing. So if you're going to do it, just document it and make sure it's a document that can be found. So often I say to my clients, if you want to do that, I keep your will for you. Give me the document. I'll just put it in the envelope with the will. And then if there's any questions later on, we can just pull out the paper and there it's accessible. It hasn't got lost. It hasn't been misplaced or taken from that. So that's the best thing you can do. The more documentation you have in place that says what you want to have happen, that's the better way of doing things.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right, John, my pleasure to talk to you about that anytime.
Yeah, it was great having you, and hopefully we can have you again. And yeah, have a great day. I know well, it looks like the rain's getting worse, but
yeah, I thought there's going to be thunder and lightning out my window, and I'm going to get a power failure. So I'm glad we got done before that happens.
Okay, perfect.
We'll
Thanks.
talk to you soon.
Great day.
Thanks, John.